It's great to be here. I love the title of your gathering today, a Democratic Popular Education Symposium, and the fact that you invited farm workers to speak makes it real, in my opinion. So the title of what I think we need to talk about today here is farm workers, our place at the table of food justice. And so there's a lot, and the reason I said that is because there's a lot of movements in the country today, and here locally especially, on food security, ending food hunger, food justice, and very rarely do you have the workers at the table. We're farm workers, and so I speak from that perspective, but there are other food system workers that very rarely are at the table of discussion, strategic thinking, tactics, and improving the food system locally. I'm really excited to see family farmers participating in that. It's always been our perspective as farm workers that we prefer to work as much as possible in a small family farming system. And as we grew up farm workers, that it was more of that tendency that farm worker families would work with family farming families in small or medium-sized farms in a local community and then become part of that community. That is my case. I grew up in La Conner. We worked for Holbert Farms, which was one of the largest family farms in the area. And even at that time in the 60s and 70s, it was growing into a much larger farm that I think we were happy with, but it was still a good place to work. And then eventually it did get to be a much bigger farm. So what's our place at the table? I mean, what does it mean when you have a farm worker at the table discussing food security, food justice, and a sustainable food system? And then I'd like to talk about that we need to be at the table if we're talking about sustainable and resilient local economies, especially in rural areas. Because you can't have a complete economic equation on anything in our community if you are not going to have a real discussion on labor from a human perspective, from a dignity perspective, instead of labor being an item on a financial statement that is usually listed as an expense, right? Yeah. And a liability. These are workers. These are members of your community, your friends, your neighbors. They live down the road, down the street. Their kids go to school with your kids. But farm workers, when it comes to the food system and the agricultural industry, are not seen as a valuable component of that system. We are a liability. We are a potential conflict. And most importantly, I think, what hurts us the most as farm workers, we are invisible. The less that we're seen or heard, the safer the agricultural industry feels. And it's amazing how we can be present physically and not be seen or heard or acknowledged. And the most radical manifestation of this is the Tulip Festival. With all those beautiful acres and acres of tulips, and the value that brings to Skagit County, and the marketing of it, and thousands of people going to see the tulips. And the farm workers that work in the tulip fields are invisible. They're not mentioned. They're not acknowledged as a stakeholder, or a component, or a key, part of the Tulip Festival. And this happens over and over and over again. I'm just reminding in California, the Garlic Festival in Gilroy, California. There's a Broccoli and Asparagus Festival in Gonzales and other areas. There's all of these food, festivals. And now, more recently, we've learned there are Mexican farm workers working on the shores of Whatcom and Skagit County, digging clams, harvesting, crab, and doing a whole other fishing work and the work around the fishing industry. So we're all over, but we're not seen, we're not heard, just in the regular community spaces, let alone in strategic planning or in dialogue about improving the food system. So I believe that if farm workers had an opportunity to actually sit at a discussion about land, about zoning, about protecting agricultural land, about a resilient agricultural economy, about processing practices, developing an infrastructure for the food system, all of these issues that we are all very concerned about and looking to participate in, that there would be some innovation that could happen in a complete planning and vision for what our local food systems should look like. But we're not there. The farm workers are not there, and let's be honest, neither are the Native American communities, who in many times grow up, own the land here, or were part of this land that we're sitting on right now. They're not farmers, they're gatherers, and they gather the food from the natural environment. And what would their thoughts be about zoning and agricultural land and providing the kind of physical environment that's needed for their foods? They can't even access their foods anymore because we've destroyed the environment that provides what the plants and the animals and the fish that they need to eat. And what about us as farm workers? What would we think if we were at the table where the decision was made about the types of inputs that are going into the production of food in terms from seed to the retailer? We would not want to see chemicals being used because we know how they affect us. And so what kind of a food system or an agricultural system does that speak to? It's like if we are at the table and we're really listened to and have real dialogue about compromising and looking into a vision where we know that we're building a future in the food system for all of us, we wouldn't be having the problems that we're having with the environment, with water, with air, with health, and with racial inequality and economic inequality in our communities. So I believe, and I'm going to finish this part of my comments by saying that over the years, as I moved from farm worker to labor organizer to food systems activist, a foodie, if you will, that what I've learned from the history of my life and my family and folks that I know, that the agricultural industry in this country was founded on slavery. It was founded on slavery, and some of that consciousness continues to this day to try to get the cheapest, most easily available, controllable labor that we possibly can to produce our food. And that's the fundamental truth of how deep we have to dig when we want to talk about food security and food justice. Every single player, every single person that's involved, the eaters and the producers, and everybody has to really be involved. So what does community to community do? So I'm the executive director. I'm the beneficiary of many women organizing in Whatcom County for peace, for racial justice, for solidarity with the people of El Salvador, for feminist work. And I'm the recipient of their knowledge and their teachings of many brave women in Whatcom County. So community to community looks at establishing social justice and equity and racial justice and gender justice in our community through the perspective of farm workers and people working in the food system. So we look at interconnected issues from a farm worker perspective. We start at the center from the farm worker perspective and then move out into all of the issues that affect us, which inevitably are the same issues that affect you. And if you eat, then you need to care about the farm workers and what is happening to us, where we're at, because you're eating the food we're touching every day. So we look at developing projects in our organization that come from the farm workers themselves, from our members, and from farm workers that are being impacted by some pretty horrific events in our community, both politically related and socially related. And immigration reform is one of the biggest. So our cooperative development center that we're developing and our cooperative development process came from a group of women whose husbands were detained and sent to the detention center in Tacoma. and they could not support themselves. And it was their idea that somehow there needs to be a place where people can learn how to form cooperatives and be able to sustain themselves economically. From that, those women who learned how to cook organically, Mexican food, cook healthy, cuisine, and form a cooperative, they decided it isn't fair that only people that can afford our food, because they have to, charge a higher price because it was all handmade, organic, are the ones eating our healthy food. We need to be able to teach our people how to eat healthy and make sure that they have access to healthy organic food now that we know about it. So from there came our Healthy Kitchens project, which is basically a community outreach project where farm worker women go into the community and educate and teach other women how to cook healthy, but it's not just about cooking. It's about where does that food come from? What are the pesticides used on it? Why should you shop at the community food co-op instead of Walmart? What is the difference for your health? Cooking with cheap ingredients versus cooking with healthy, locally grown, organic product. And so it's been a long process for us. This is our 10th year anniversary. And I actually never even thought about it, except that some of our allies reminded us. This is our 10th year. And so we'll be having a 10th anniversary event, I think it's September, which you will all hear about. But it's been 10 years, it's been a long road. We're women-led, we're farm worker-led, we're people of color-led, and we're one of the very few organizations of this type. We're finding out almost across the nation because we're an eco-feminist organization, and we are what we call ourselves a movement-building organization. So in that sense, we as women and as farm workers are like catalysts that seize political moments, that seize energy of the people that are struggling, that come to us, and then we take that energy and we try to weave it into actionable and shareable experiences to transform, to create a transformation in our society and have people look at us as intelligent human beings. We are not just the recipients of exploitative practices. We are actually vessels of innovation that need to be recognized and brought to the table. So brothers and sisters, if you're talking about food security in a democratic popular education symposium, it cannot be completely democratic and completely secure if the people that are facing the exploitation of an unsecure system and an unpopular social structure are not at that table. Because they are the only ones that know what the answers and the solutions are. So I would like to end my part of this part by bringing you the latest movement and the latest spark that has hit us as an organization, basically, and caught us on fire and challenged us to live up to our mission and to our ideals as movement builders and community organizers in Whatcom and Skagit counties. And so with that, I'd like to pass the microphone to Ramon Torres to explain to him where we are and where farm workers in our area are now and why you should be paying attention.
Pues muchas gracias por invitarnos.
Thank you for inviting us.
Mi nombre es Ramón Torres.
My name is Ramon Torres.
Soy un trabajador de campo.
I'm a farm worker.
He trabajado alrededor de 11 años.
I've been a farm worker for around 11 years.
Vengo de inmigrante de California.
I'm an immigrant from the area of California to Washington.
Y pues ahorita soy presidente de una nueva unión.
And now I am president of a new union.
Que exactamente es para pelear los derechos de los trabajadores.
Which has been forming to fight for the rights of farm workers.
Se llama Familias Unidas
It's
por la
called
Justicia.
Familias Unidas por la Justicia.
Pues tenemos mucha información,
We have a lot of information to
tenemos
give
una
you.
página de Facebook,
We have a Facebook page.
la página es Familias Unidas por la
It's
Justicia.
called Familias Unidas por la Justicia.
Si quieren
It's like
saber,
that. If you want to know more
Sobre la huelga
about our strike
o sobre los derechos que estamos peleando,
or about our demands that we're fighting for,
yo creo que deberían de chequear esta página.
please go to the Facebook page.
Y nuestros metas ahorita son
Our goals right now are
agarrar un contrato de unión.
to have a union contract.
En este contrato de unión queremos un sueldo justo,
In this contract union, we want a fair wage.
que queremos empezar con $15 por hora.
We want to have a beginning wage of $15 an hour.
Queremos un plan médico,
We want to have
queremos un plan médico, queremos que nos paguen días festivos,
We want paid holidays.
queremos que se nos respete nuestro trabajo,
We want our work valued and respected.
queremos buenas condiciones de vivienda.
We want good living conditions.
Buenas quiere decir un lugar que sea adecuado para familias.
A good living conditions mean living conditions that are adequate for families.
No queremos tampoco un castillo,
We don't want a castle,
pero queremos algo para nuestras familias.
but we want something better for our families.
Y pues nosotros, pues como campesinos,
We as farm workers,
es como está diciendo Rosalinda, somos los invisibles.
it's like Rosalinda said, we're invisible. We're the invisible ones.
¿Cuántos festivales no se hacen
How many festivals
a salud de los campesinos?
how many festivals do you see for the health of farm workers?
¿Y cuándo has visto un campesino ahí?
And when have you seen a farm worker there?
Estas compañías nunca andan pues enseñando realmente quién hace todo este trabajo.
The agri corporations never really show who is doing all the work.
Y yo pienso, para hacer un festival, los principales que
And I
deberían
think
estar
if you're
ahí
going to have a festival, the principal actors that should be there
tenían que ser los trabajadores,
should be the workers.
la gente que está trabajando la tierra,
The people that are working on the land,
sembrando,
planting,
cuidando las plantas
taking care of the plants,
para poner comida en sus mesas.
to put food on everybody's tables.
Y ese es queremos que nuestro trabajo no sea un trabajo donde yo tenga que estar presionado por ir a trabajar.
I want our work to be the type of work where I'm not being pressured to go to work.
Quiero ir a trabajar orgulloso,
I want to go to work and be proud,
estar orgulloso de mi trabajo,
to be proud of my work,
enseñarle a mi familia que el campo no
to
es
show my family that being a farm worker
nomás para las personas pobres,
is not just for poor people,
que sea un trabajo justo para todos,
that it be just work for everybody.
no nomás porque seamos ilegales
Not
tengamos
because we're
que
undocumented
trabajar ahí,
doesn't mean that we have to work in the
sino
fields,
que nos den la oportunidad de buscar un trabajo en el que estemos a gusto.
but to give us the opportunities to have the kinds of jobs in agriculture where we feel satisfied.
Yo pues llegué a Estados Unidos para alrededor de 10, 11 años.
I came here to the United States about 11 years ago.
Pues tenía como 18
I
años de
was
edad.
18 years old when I
A los
arrived.
14 empecé a trabajar en México.
And in Mexico, I started working full-time at the age of 14.
Pero allá es muy diferente.
But it's very different over there. I come from the city.
No hay campus.
There's no farm labor
Entonces
camps.
para mí fue muy difícil adaptarme a otro mundo, se puede decir.
So for me, it was very difficult to adapt myself to a whole new world.
Pero es algo de verdaderamente impresionante.
But it's something that is impressionable.
Cuando ves grupos como en el trabajo, familias,
When you see groups of workers in the fields, like families,
agarran su lonche juntos
they eat together.
y ves las familias, puños,
And you
grupos
see
de
them in
familias
groups of families
comiendo,
eating together.
da una alegría que
And they're happy.
yo pienso que ni en la casa lo hace uno.
And it makes you feel happy because I don't think you even feel that at home when you're outside eating in that manner.
Mucha alegría, mucha gente se la pasa cantando.
Many people work in the fields, they sing. Pero estás hablando de México, ¿no? Oh, okay. Many people are singing,
Cantando, gritando.
they yell, they shout.
Eso quiere decir que les gusta este trabajo.
That means that they like the work.
Pero no nomás por eso debemos de dejarnos.
But just because we like to do the work doesn't mean we should let ourselves be exploited.
El año pasado
Last
estuvimos en
year,
huelga en una compañía
we went on
Sakuma,
strike from Sakuma Brothers Berry Farm.
está en Burlington.
It's in Burlington.
Nos estaban robando sueldos,
There was rampant wage theft.
horas.
Our hours were not all being paid.
breaks,
We did not have breaks.
lunches.
We did not have lunch breaks.
Teníamos unas condiciones de vivienda muy malas.
The living conditions were very bad.
Y todavía nos faltaban el respeto los supervisores en el lugar de trabajo.
And on top of that, during the workday, the supervisors treated us with no respect.
Pues llegó el día de que nos enfadamos.
Then the day came when we've had enough, like anybody can.
Salimos 240
240 workers
trabajadores en
went
huelga
on strike,
pidiendo
asking for
que restituyeran a un compañero de nosotros.
that they rehire one of our compañeros that they fired.
Había sido corrido por pedir un sueldo justo.
He was fired for asking for a better wage.
Entonces no se nos hace justo
And we didn't think it was fair,
que estén despidiendo gente que quiere ayudar a los trabajadores.
that it's not fair that a worker be fired who was asking for trying to help for everybody else.
Entonces ahí para mí es muy importante como organizaciones como C2C.
For in that time, during times like that, for me, I feel it's very important to have organizations like C2C.
Un grupo de campesinos como nosotros
A group of farm workers like us.
no sabemos nada de justicia,
We don't know how to get
cómo
justice,
pelear derechos,
how to fight for our rights.
no sabíamos nada.
We knew very little.
Lo único que sabíamos era piscar fresas, moras y
What we
blueberries.
knew was to pick strawberries, blueberries, and blackberries.
Entonces gracias a esta organización de C2C
So because C2C
logramos
showed up, we managed
hacer una unión.
to
Es pequeña,
now develop a union.
pero para empezar está bien.
And it's a small union, but to start out, it's good.
Y a mí es algo muy, pues, se me hace algo muy grande que
For me, it's something very, very big that
estas organizaciones,
that
C2C,
organizations like C2C,
ellos ya tienen sus rutinas de
that they have
trabajar.
their routines of work already developed.
Entonces nosotros los campesinos salimos en huelga
So then we went on strike,
y nosotros decidimos lo que vamos a hacer.
and we decide when we were on strike what we need done.
Y es por eso que seguimos juntos con
And
C2C,
that's why we've got a partnership with C2C.
porque C2C es lo único que ellos hacen
Because what C2C does in our movement
es estar de testigos.
is to be a witness.
No tienen voto.
They don't have a vote in our organization.
Si vas a pelear
Because if you're going to fight
como nosotros,
like us,
campesinos,
farm workers,
vamos a pelear nosotros.
we're the ones that have to do the
Porque
fighting.
nosotros somos los que trabajamos.
Because we're the ones doing the work.
Nosotros sabemos nuestros problemas.
Because we know what the problems are.
Y aquí está la confusión entre las otras
And
uniones.
here's the confusion in other unions.
Otras uniones nos han querido ayudar,
Other unions have tried to help us,
pero ellos quieren dirigirnos.
but they want to lead us.
Y eso no podemos pues permitirlo.
And we cannot permit that.
Porque yo como trabajador de campo
Because I, as a farm worker,
no me siento seguro
I don't feel secure
que una persona que toda su vida ha trabajado como secretaria
that a person whose whole life they worked in an administrative office
o doctor
or a doctor
pelee un contrato para mí.
should be able to fight for a contract for me.
Esto es el rol que tiene C2C.
So that's what the role that C2C plays is,
Tratar de ayudarnos
to support us,
cómo distribuir nuestra información
to get our information out,
y seguirnos, pero un paso atrás de lo que estamos
and
haciendo.
to follow us, but one step behind us and what we want and what we need.
Y pues me daría mucho gusto ahora pues darle las gracias a C2C
And I would like to take the moment to thank
pues,
C2C
por toda la ayuda que
for all
está
the
haciendo a los
help that
campesinos.
they have done, all the work they've done for farmers.
Y pues también por todos.
And also all of you.
Gracias.
Thank you. So there's a lot more to the story, as you all know. I think that right now we'll come back because we're at a critical moment and why we need your support. But this is what we've all been waiting for, is for farm workers to form their own organization. We can't do it for the workers themselves. I've been a farm worker. I'm not working in the fields now. I'm part of C2C. And so the only ones that know the solutions and the answers again is the workers. So, but the workers can't do it alone. I know that. C2C can't do it alone. And so the person I'd like to introduce is Thomas Kaplan, who's representing Western Washington Universities for Farm Worker Justice, so he can explain to you the role they play in all of this amazing movement that's happening right now.
Hi, thank you very much for having me. I'm Thomas Kaplan. I'm here on behalf of Western Washington Students for Farm Worker Justice. As Rosalinda mentioned, we are an organization that formed on campus, although we aren't only students. The way that we came to be was that about 1 year ago, when we started hearing word of the strikes going on the Sycamore farm, Ramon Torres from Familias Unidas and their union began to reach out to members of the community to join them in solidarity. Luckily, we've had the opportunity to hear from Ramon Torres and from Rosalinda as well, who are experts in food justice and in organizing, and have been able to help us form our own committee that can support them in an effort that they are leading to help transform our food system. And we feel very lucky to have had access to that. So part of the way that this works essentially is that the farm workers at the top are deciding what exactly we need to be doing as students to support their cause. In school, we talk about food justice. We talk about the legacy of slavery and racism in our country and in our community. We discuss it at an academic level, but as Rosalinda pointed out, it's really an ungrounded discussion when we don't have participation from the people that are most truly affected by the kind of decisions that we're talking about making. And to some degree, it's true that the students and those of us with the privilege to be in school or to be in positions of power in our communities, we will be the ones that have access to the political system in some way, or we might be necessary components in moving the society forward. But unfortunately, if we don't have leadership of those most affected, it's inevitable that we only continue to increase the disparities and replicate the systems that have oppressed these people for so long. And I read on one of the tables, there's some quotes by Martin Luther King, and it's very much the view of our organization that all of our oppressions are connected, and those that are most marginalized are the ones that we need to keep giving us leadership. So we feel very lucky to have Familias Unidas, who has been guiding us through this process of forming a solidarity committee. What they have asked the students to do is to spread word of what is going on. We fundraise, we have events, we support with our volunteer capacity in any event by C2C or Familias Unidas where they need participation, where they need people to help run the event or a flyer or whatever it is that needs to be done. And also independently, we've participated in several actions that Familias Unidas has called for, which draw attention to the specific decision makers that are affecting the process on Sycamore farms for getting out of contract. So our organization was birthed out of a movement started by Familias Unidas por la Justicia and farm workers in the Skagit Valley. But our hope for the long term is that with the continued leadership of the farm workers and grassroots organizing, that we might be able to keep our organization together and spread this fight to help transform the food systems in our area. And we feel very lucky to have been given that opportunity by Familias Unidas por la Justicia. So one of the last major events that we had was the March for Dignity, which was on May 5th. May 4th, excuse me. And what that was, it was a farm worker-led march where we were the students, WWU Students for Farm Worker Justice. We were the main volunteers there. So as the farm workers led the march, we would have different capacities as far as getting raincoats to people on time or helping distribute the banners. And I was hoping that I might be able to share, or that we might be able to share that video with you to kind of show you a little bit about what some of our actions look like.
Which was done by a student.
And yeah, and this video, as a matter of fact, was done by a student on the committee. Yeah, thank you.
to start la marcha with Amigas Unidas por la Justicia. And I mean, it's super early, it's 7 in the morning. We have been invited to march with farm workers. So we're doing this in solidarity. We're really, so there's good energy here. Everybody's excited to just kind of make our stance and walk in solidarity.
Porque la entrega hay vida verdadera. Ayúdanos a amar aún a los que nos odian. Así podemos cambiar el mundo. Vamos.
Today, we were the march of farm worker dignity. We started in Linden, a few people, I'd say around 10 people, marched from Linden all the way to the Sikh temple where they gave us some good food, they had some oranges, apples, and gave us some water.
This group here is the Welcome Democrats, and they are here to give solidarity here at the Sikh temple in Linden. And so we have solidarity from both groups, and they're here to support farm workers with a little bit of these snacks so that they can have strength to march all the way to Bellingham.
Welcome everyone. Yummy that pakoda is called veggie agro. Really good. Your other organizers, they test it. They love it.
So we were marching since late.
Everybody has
And right now we're like giving us food for the march, and it's really good.
And we're off to first Mongolia, where we met a lot of the farm workers there and the families and all that together. And it was a really good energy and really good vibe.
All in top behind the Solidarity Economy banner also is going to be the first one to lead us out. So Modesto, he's a local farm worker here. He's been working in the field since 2006. He's actually sacrificed a lot personally, physically. And honored to have him here leading a march. He brought us here with Guillen.
And then off from there, we march on and we continue to Tecamagoya. And there we met C2C Farm Worker Justice that picket there. And Orkaya Sakuma, Amigas Unidas. From there, we stopped at Cornwall Park. We had a little water break. After that, we continued to the courthouse where we had a little deportation, and off we continued to the park where we are now, where we had some food provided and had a lot of good music and shows going on to show that we are part of the community and that farm workers deserve respect.
Tiene familia en México, tiene que pagar estos rentas, que los chiquitos tienen que mandarle morirle en México. No alcanza, no es el punto. Aquí lo mínimo que debe pagar el campesino para que le pueda alcanzar y sobrevivir. 15 $, bien, comer, mínimo, y le alcanza. No, nadie, no, aquí no, para que sobreviva,
My name is Mari Villalpando, and I'm part of the non-government campaign against deportations. Well, we marched, some people marched over 17 miles, other people marched 10. I marched like 5 miles, and we were happy to march even though it was raining and cold, to support all the farm workers, not only here in the Whatcom County, the Guillen, but across the nation. Well, the immediate issue is to ensure that workers are not being replaced with foreign H2A as workers, but also that they're respected and they have a contract, especially in the farms in the Guillen Valley.
It was raining at the beginning. I was soaked, and my clothes dried, and got soaked again. It was really good energy and sweat, even if it was raining.
Yes. Does anybody have any questions? Yes.
I have a comment. Modesto, in the wheelchair,
Yes.
has also taken advantage of the opportunities to learn English and to take classes in literacy. He's one of our past students at Water Garden in Houston, and felt enough courage to be able to come here to BTC. He was illiterate when we met him, and now he's doing, moving up in his level, but he's also gaining confidence in the community. And when I saw him, I thought, yeah, that would be him. He's small but mighty.
He's amazing. Yeah, and he's asking for more opportunity to lead. So I think that, we've got those opportunities.
Yes, and he's also one of my brothers in Christ. We attend the same church. But with that in mind, every day my husband and I, whenever we have our food, we pray for every worker in the field because we know how hard it is. My husband's family's from Guillen, and they were agriculture workers and eventually became landowners. But it was a hard job, and you were part of that.
Well, and Ramon's actually from Delano. I mean, he lived in Delano more before he came here. So
yeah, and you know what it's like down there. We lost our stepdad to the gangs and such too. So it was just interesting to see this.
And for those of you who don't know, Modesto, about 5 years ago, I believe, had frostbite on his feet pruning raspberries and had to have his feet amputated. He's not even 40 years old. That's why he's in a wheelchair. He came to our organization asking for help with his L&I claim, and has been a member ever since and has led the march. It's one of he looks forward to it every year to be able to lead the march. He's an amazing, wise person. Yeah.
Right, and one of our other students is encouraging his co-workers to take some classes in conversational English, not to read and write, but to be able to have a voice with their employer, because he's being asked by his coworkers, can you go talk to the patrolman of me, see if you can get me a job, so you can get me wages. And he keeps telling them, empower yourself. If you can talk directly to your patrolman, you're going to be able to have a higher standing. And they're going to be able to see there's more equalization rather than the patron and the little peons. So it's really important if there's opportunities to take that because you're thinking people, you have a brain and an ability to learn. Your lifetime learners, you have so many skills. So take the opportunities that are available and empower yourself and your families in the community and help build the community in that perspective as well.
And I think that's why we're here, because farm workers try to do this all the time. And it's difficult to move forward because there isn't that support for farm workers being able to do that. And I think that's why an individual farm worker trying to move forward is important and they should do it. But when it's organized in a group, into an organization like Familias Unidas por la Justicia, there's more power. And the ultimate goal is to change the system itself, to change the agricultural industry and how it functions, so that workers don't have to do that, don't have to be at that place where every day is a struggle for individual workers. And I think right now we need your support, because when farm workers organize, that's when the backlash comes back at the farm workers even harder. And that's why we need the support right now. And I'm just going to take a moment to say that Sakuma Brothers Berry Farm has requested 438 guest workers to replace Familias Unidas por la Justicia that went on strike last year. So we are in the process, Familias Unidas is in the process of fighting that application. And the decision should have been made 5 days after they applied, which was April 14th, and there has been no decision made yet, which is a good thing, because Ramon had the foresight and the vision to say there's no way they're going to be able to bring guest workers because our members say they are ready to go back to work at Familias. And in February, Ramon drafted a letter that each and every single worker signed, saying, I have worked for Sakuma Brother Farms X number of years, I'm an expert berry picker, and I'm available to work when called. And these letters, 468 letters, have been delivered to the Department of Labor, Employment Security, and Sakuma Brothers Berry Farm. And so you cannot bring guest workers in if there are local workers available to work. And that's what we're challenging. And there has never been the kind of foresight that Ramon had to move in this direction. So that's why you're standing in the face of greatness for our future here locally. If you really want to change the food system and you're really talking about food security, they're the ones that are going to do it. I'm getting old, organizing is tiring, but Ramon's not even 30 yet, all right? He's not even 30, he's already formed a union. So, this is who you should be looking to if you really want to have food security and a fair food system.
I'm just really touched by your presentation, and I want to say thank you. I commend you for your work. And the question I have is, have you considered linking to the global stuff? Because this is happening everywhere in different forms and different guises to a different extent. And when you're talking about guest workers, you're talking about cross-border. So there is the International Labor Organization which regulates these things. And I think this is a matter of raising it to, beyond the national context to a global level. So I'm just wondering if you've done anything to that extent.
We haven't gotten that far yet. And seriously, a lot of the reason we haven't moved in the direction that we want to is capacity. I mean, resources and our ability to be able to do that. Ramon, again, set up, organized, because the workers right now, about 3/4 of them are in Washington State, and the other part are in California. So some of the workers are in Delano, Santa Maria, Madera, Fresno, and Redding. And so they're spread out because they're working in that area. So what Ramon did have them do is they actually did a delegation to the Mexican consulate in California. And so there's the beginning, and Familias Unidas and Community to Community have formed a formal partnership with the Frente Indígena Binacional Oaxaqueño, which is a Oaxacan labor organization out of Oaxaca. And so we're beginning to do that cross-border organizing specifically with the Mexican government because they're the other player in the H-2A program. So Ramon met with the Mexican consulate staff person yesterday, was that yesterday? ¿Sí fue ayer, verdad? Cuando nos juntamos con la señora que es del consulado en Mount Vernon. Oh. Yeah. Anyway, he's going to give her the copies of the letter, so we're going to the Mexican consulates. But then the ILO, I think, is a great contact for us to be able to make. There has never been this kind of a challenge to an H-2A application. And for those of you that don't know, in 2004, there were about less than 400 guest workers were brought into work in Washington State. There's going to be close to 12,000 this year. the majority in Eastern Washington. So, that's the apple growers.
El problema es que no tenemos nada contra los trabajadores de México.
I just want to clarify that we don't have anything against the Mexican workers
El problema
coming
es
in.
que necesitamos poner primero nuestra gente que ya está aquí.
First, the problem is that we need to first think of our people that are already here.
Porque nosotros pagamos nuestra renta,
Because we pay our rent,
comida,
our food,
biles,
all our bills, taxes
una
even,
medical que no tenemos,
medical that we don't have, we don't use, federal taxes.
pagamos todo como si fuéramos ciudadanos.
We pay for everything as if we were citizens.
Entonces, no es que estemos a contra de nuestra propia gente de México.
It's not, we are not against our own people from Mexico.
Pero nosotros tenemos que pensar qué va a ser de nuestras familias.
But we have to think about what's going to happen with our families.
Por cada trabajador que traen de México,
For every worker they bring from Mexico contracted,
están desbaratando una
they are
familia.
breaking up a family.
Una familia que está compuesta
A
de
family that has
gentes grandes, esposa,
2 parents,
esposo,
wife and husband, and children.
entonces quiere decir que son 5.
And then we're talking about 5 people.
Si traen estos 438,
If they bring 438 workers,
¿qué vamos a hacer las familias que hemos trabajado año?
what's going to happen with all the families that have worked here year after year?
Hemos trabajado, hay unos que han trabajado hasta por 14
There are
años.
people that have worked for Sakuma Berry Farms for up to 14 years.
Entonces, si se aprueba esta aplicación de
So if
trabajadores
this
de México,
application is approved,
su vida de estas familias va a dar un cambio completamente.
the lives of all these families are going, there's going to be a radical change in their lives.
Y no sabemos cómo puede cambiar.
And we don't know what kinds of changes those will be.
Y pues nuestra meta ahorita también es
Our goal right now is
tratar de parar esta aplicación
to stop this application.
y volver, pues según tenemos derechos,
And to return because we understand we have rights.
pero estas organizaciones de trabajadores de México
But these organizations that bring in workers from Mexico,
nomás están viendo el modo de hacer dinero.
they're just looking for ways to
No
make
están
money.
pensando a quién están destruyendo.
They're not looking at the destruction that they're causing.
Y pues los que están destruyendo somos nosotros, a nosotros.
And the destruction that's being caused, it's to us.
Y pues buscamos el apoyo. Si
So
alguien
we
de
ask for your
ustedes
support. If any of you
gusta apoyar,
want to
yo creo
support,
que el apoyo más grande que ocupamos
the biggest support that we need right now
es para tratar de que rechacen la aplicación.
is to get this application rejected. And we have information on the Facebook page and our website for you to call and email the Department of Labor, Employment Security, and Sakuma Brothers Berry Farms. Stoney?
I was going to ask precisely what to do, and you just told us.
Yeah. So right now, that's what we need is emails and calls to the Department of Labor, Employment Security Department, and Sakuma Brothers Berry Farm asking them to pull the application and asking ESD or Department of Labor to reject it. Washington State Employment Security Department needs to have a microscope on them because they are the ones that implement the program once an application is approved. Well, there you go, Karen's got the information. The other thing you can do is sign one of those small half sheets, which is going to go to Sakuma Berry Farms and copies to the Department of Labor and Employment Security, basically saying as a consumer, you're asking that this application be rejected. Yes?
Your comment about Eastern Washington and the apple orchards, is this happening over there?
No.
Are they displacing?
Yes, they are displacing, yeah. Yes.
I understand, you're not working over
Right.
there, but they are displacing local
Yes,
residents?
yes.
And nobody doing this work over
No,
there?
no, because again, it's like,
Yeah, of course.
so, and the majority of these workers are being brought in by one contractor called the Washington Farm Labor Association. This association is making money up to $1,500 per worker that they bring in. Because the growers pay them to go to Mexico, contract the workers, and take care of all of the application process and the administration of getting the applications approved. Now, you know, it's pretty strong language for me to say that these applications have been rubber stamped, but basically they've been rubber stamped. You cannot bring in guest workers if you can prove that there's not a labor shortage. Every year, the growers say there's a labor shortage. You'll hear it every single year. One time they even convinced Christine Gregoire to send prisoners from the prisons to go and work in agriculture because there was not enough farm workers. And guess how much they paid those guys?
$2.
$21 an hour. Your taxes paid for those inmates to work in agriculture at $21 an hour. So what do you think farm workers are going to say to that? They have been getting, we have been getting paid minimum wage forever, right? The guest workers get paid right now $11.87 an hour because that's what the federal program mandates. How is it possible that the Kuma Brothers Berry Farm can agree or wants to bring in 438 workers at almost $12 an hour when he's never paid the domestic workers above minimum wage? There's a disconnect here when growers say we can't afford to raise the wage to $15 an hour, but they can afford to import workers. The reason you should care about this is because if you do the math on the payroll that's leaving our communities and going back to Mexico or wherever in Eastern Washington, there's workers from Indonesia, Jamaica, and other parts of the world. That is Washington State, the Washington State economy leaving us, while there is unemployed farm workers regionally, right? And these are we're professional workers in the fields. There's a disconnect here when you're talking about food security and food justice, and nobody has said anything about it. It's been happening since 2004, and here we are in 2014, 10 years later. The numbers are growing and growing and growing. And if you look at the Comprehensive Immigration Reform Bill, Senate Bill 744, this program is wildly expanded. It moves from the H-2A program to the W-Visa program. And it expands the numbers allowed in by corporations that they can bring in to other industries. It includes, construction, the service industry, processing, nursing, and many other industries. So it opens up the door for corporations to be able to import workers. So yes, they've stopped exporting jobs. Now they're importing workers. So that Senate bill, that 744, is a corporate giveaway in a union-busting bill, plain and simple.
Yeah.
So you need to care and pay attention to this H-2A application, this H-2A business going on and that's growing in Washington State in agriculture. Tony?
What should we do with these?
Karen will collect them and bring them back to the office. We've got close to, over 1,000 we've collected so far and we've delivered. Any more questions? Did you want to say anything? Oh, if anybody wants to join or form a boycott committee, talk to Thomas. We're boycotting the berries, okay? Yes.
Is your Facebook page public, or do you have to be a Facebook? Is it a set private or public? Do you know?
Public.
It's public.
It's public. Okay.
Yeah. Cool. So we are boycotting the product. We are boycotting the products coming out of Sakuma Brothers Berry Farm. That is one of the biggest tasks that C2C has taken on, is supporting the workers in promoting this product. And one of the jobs that Thomas didn't speak about, that these students deserve a lot of credit for helping to stop this H-2A application, because they've been conducting direct actions consistently for weeks now. And they are also going to other universities and forming other student groups in support of this movement. So they have done an amazing job. And I think we should all not buy products that are being produced with quasi-slave labor brought in through the H-2A program.
Okay, I know you're probably close to out of time, but I am very impressed with Ramon, and I want to know, how can we help leaders like Ramon be nurtured so that they take action like you've done?
I think
how did you get going? What was it?
Right now what they need is money. That's one way. I mean, when workers go on strike and they're not working, all of the workers last year lost about 6 weeks worth of wages. And you're talking about the poorest workers. Ramon, Felimon, and a couple of other workers are doing the majority of the running around, the legwork of gathering declarations, doing presentations, and traveling all over the state promoting the boycott. So that's one thing they can do, is money.
Pues no, pues yo fui despedido de esta compañía
Well, I was fired from this company.
el año pasado en septiembre.
I was fired last year, September 12th.
Septiembre, ajá.
Yeah.
Entonces, para nosotros fue muy duro.
For us, it's been very hard.
Porque pues yo estaba trabajando
Because I was working,
y pues de ahí yo podía mantenerme
and from there I could support myself
y seguir liderando
and
pues, la
keep
huelga.
leading the strike.
Pero el problema empezó cuando me corrieron.
The problem then got worse when I was fired.
Porque ahorita no puedo tener un trabajo que sea permanente.
Because now it's hard to hold a job, a full-time job,
Porque tengo que estar por todos lados.
because I'm moving all over, doing all sorts of
Y
things.
pues sí, de lo que estoy batallando yo, pues mucho.
And what is the hardest problem for me
Que
now
pues tengo una esposa y una niña.
is that I have a wife and a daughter,
Y pues tengo que pagar renta,
and I have to pay rent,
comida.
buy my
biles.
food and
Y pues
bills.
la verdad,
And the truth is,
pues no tengo un sueldo.
I don't have a steady income.
Entonces, pues es lo que andamos también viendo, a ver cómo es, buscamos una forma,
So that's what we're trying to do is
pues para yo tener un sueldo.
looking for a way to be able to sustain myself so I can continue. Yeah. So, and then the other thing is, you're talking about nurturing, it's this type of events, right? Asking him to come and tell his story, supporting the effort of the union formation and speaking up in any arena, in any place where agriculture is being discussed and the food system is being discussed. Why isn't there a farm worker voice here? And and then call Ramon for events or other places where we need to be, and boycott the product. Join the boycott committee. I mean, if you see any actions.
Yeah, another way that I think you can make yourself useful if you want to participate in this and show some solidarity for the struggle of the farm workers is a boycott committee. We meet every week. We are working on building up an infrastructure that can support the farm workers when we are called on for whatever action it is that they ask from us. So if you would like to know some more information about our general meetings, I'll be outside and can inform you when our next one is. But basically, we try to make ourselves available to help them or to join them in any action that they need from us, whether it be to stand outside of the Sakuma farm and let them know that there is a dispute that consumers are concerned with, to sign letters, to get signatures. There's a lot of different ways that we have been asked to participate. Leafleting a grocery store, for example. So that's another way to get yourself involved is try to build an infrastructure that can support the farm workers when they call on you, and try to make a community, a solidarity community that is ready to accept their leadership and to embrace this leadership when the opportunity comes. And we've been really lucky to have this opportunity so far.
There are a lot of farms in Standard and Washington County, so are they the only ones doing this? Or are
Yes.
there?
Sakuma Brothers Berry Farm is the only farm that has applied for guest workers, and in such a large number, especially this year. They have not only applied for the guest workers, they have been proactive in trying to convince other farms that guest worker labor is the way to go if they want to maintain the agricultural industry and make it more profitable than what it is. And so Ramon says it very eloquently. It's like, we are families working on the land. We're not machines that you can just bring in and then dispose of, right? Which is what would happen with the guest worker program. It would change the culture of the whole county when you look at farm labor in that direction. We are in a critical moment right now. The whole food system is, in my opinion. And they are the ones, that farm is taking the leadership, and we've talked to other farmers who told us that they were just appalled because they've been working with families for years and years, and there's a cycle to it, right? That we all get used to, that is our food system. Well, this would change things drastically. So, yeah.
I would like to also say we're all sort of writers, perhaps, that there was an op-ed piece by a man, farm work of
Henry Bierling.
Henry, thank you.
Welcome, Farm
Henry
Friends.
Bierling. And he basically, if you read it carefully, it was in the Linden Tribune and then it was in the Bellingham Herald. If you read it very, very carefully, it's very nuanced racist. It just is. And he talks about the Sakuma family as being very upstanding and quite wonderful, and we can write letters to the editor, and
That
we
would
can
be,
certainly
letters to the editor would be amazing.
con-
If you can get them
that-
published.
If we can get it,
But-
we can get them published somewhere. We've got the Waccamaw,
Yeah.
we've got the Cascade
Yes,
Weekly.
that would be great to have letters to the editor, and if you could let us know when you write them, so that, we can promote them both on our Facebook. Henry Bierling said something in his letter that I can't forget. He said that there are some bad actors out there in the industry, but that the market weeds them out. That with the laws and regulations, those bad actors get weeded out, and so people shouldn't worry about that. Well, you know what? We're all products of those bad actors. As farm workers, we've never seen anybody get weeded out for exploiting farm workers, ever. And so that's a myth. It's a myth about the marketplace. It's a myth about regulations and laws, that because they exist, the problem's taken care of. That is just not true. And I think those are things that are appalling to us, and that's why Familias Unidas por la Justicia is it is an opportunity and a blessing to all of us, because they have brought the truth starkly in front of everybody. It's a mirror that you just cannot get rid of. This is what it is. So, yes, letters to the editor, speaking up when you hear somebody saying something about it, coming to get us so that if we can give presentations. Ramon is more than willing. The workers want to give presentations. They want to tell the story. We have 400 workers that are ready to stand in front of the camera and just tell their story whenever the possibility arrives. So call us, call Ramon. Yeah.
Okay. I live in Skagit County, and I'm familiar with the situation in Burlington. I've also had positive interactions with the Spooner Brothers. So I feel that I need to stand up and say it's the practices, it's the system that needs to change, that we don't want to vilify people, in my opinion, that we need to work with people. So we don't want to make someone a villain. We want to make someone understand there's other ways of doing things that are more just and more humane and more right for them as well as everyone else. And I feel like I couldn't sit here and not say that. So thank you for giving me that.
So I think what I've been saying is that that's what we need to do.
Yeah.
We need to change the system. It's this system that's created to actually not just exploit farm workers, but small family farmers. It's not just us. I mean, we think we need to be partners with small family farmers. But also, you need to know that for 3 weeks, the workers worked with the Sakuma family. They met sometimes twice, 3 times a week at a table trying to resolve these problems. So, I mean, I know Ryan Sakuma. I've met with Steve Sakuma. I've known them. I've sat at different tables in different places trying to find solutions to end the exploitation of farm workers. So, we don't want to vilify. It's not that we're vilifying. We're telling the truth. This is the truth. The truth is that Ramon sat at a round table with the committee and pointed to very specifically to Ryan Sakuma and Steve Sakuma the wage theft that was occurring. Gave them a solution to stop that without any, nothing that just fix it and everything's going to be fine. And they refused to do it. So the workers had to go to court and file a lawsuit. They tried to do that. They worked with Ryan and Steve Sakuma because that was my job. That's what Ramon told me, the workers. You sit and watch and be a witness to what we're trying to do. So they sat with Steve and Ryan Sakuma, came up with a process, a really working process, which is innovative, and I think every grower needs to look at this. They came up together, the Sakumas and the workers, with a picking process to try to determine the price per pound, per wage, that the workers then would feel good about. If you say 40 cents a pound, we've gone through this process, we'll accept it. If you say 20 cents a pound, we've gone through this process, we'll accept it because we know it's fair and we know why you're paying us that, right? Before that, every single day when the workers showed up at the field, they didn't know what they were going to get paid. Who works at a place when you show up for work and you don't know what you're going to earn? Every day, 400 farm workers would go to the field. They would not know how much they were going to earn until the supervisor told them 5 minutes before they started picking.
And the workers said to Ryan and Steve, that's not acceptable. You have to have something better than that. And here's our idea. And so they came up with a process. We got it written down. They signed off on it. For 3 weeks, they worked through this process together with the supervisors and the Sakumas, and it worked. They came up with agreeable price per pound. And then one day, and because Ramon was leading the picking group, the price per pound came out after the picking was done at 43 cents a pound. And I'm going to say this because it's the truth. Ryan Sakuma threw a fit in the field and said, no way am I paying you 43 cents a pound. And the worker said, but that's what it comes out. Based on the quantity and the quality of the berries, it's 43 cents a pound. He said, nope, you're getting 30 cents a pound. That's all. And he would not budge on that. Ramon said to him, hey, let's talk about this. That's not the way it should work. I mean, why don't you say at least 40 cents a pound? Maybe we'll take 40 cents a pound. He goes, nah, 30 cents a pound. The picking team, the workers' picking team, came back to the labor camp and they were furious. He refused to budge. And they called a meeting of the workers and everybody was like, why? Everything had been working so well. Why did this happen? The next day, 3 consultants from California showed up at the labor camp with the Sakumas and did the most horrific thing with the workers, basically just saying this is over. They wouldn't even let Sakumas. There was a lawyer, consultants, and the security guards showed up. There was end of discussion, ended right there. That is what happened. They're the owners of the farm. They're the managers. They made that decision and they made that happen. We're not, what do you call that, vilifying? That's the truth. And that's unfair. And this is why the workers did what they did immediately after that. Like 2 days later, they boycotted the product. And what we're doing is telling the truth. And the truth is sometimes unpleasant. We're not perfect either. And we're doing the best that we can. And so are they. We thought they were too, that it was worth it. There was a point during those discussions when people were asking me, and I was saying, this is amazing. They even listened to me give a 20-minute speech on domestic fair trade. Because I said, my God, if this works out, you guys could put a fair trade label on your berries. We'll help you sell. This will be great for agriculture, right? They chose not to do that. That was their choice, not the workers. So what do? Fold?
No.
It's over? No, I'm not saying to you. I'm saying to the whole group, right? I'm just saying, as farm workers, that's what's happened in the past. We gave up. There was no power. There was no support. But because community to community exists, because we were able to support the workers, they were able to go to the next level, which was move the boycott forward and get their message out to the public. Otherwise, nobody'd be hearing about this today. Guest workers would have come in, everything would have been taken care of, and that's the end of the story. One more chapter that gets hidden in people's memories about those days, that this happened and they all got fired. So we want domestic fair trade. We want to work with the farmers. We want to make it better. The workers wanted to stay there, to want to continue working. They tried everything they could think of to try to talk them into it. Now I know, and the workers know, those 3 weeks they were meeting and things were going so well, they were already going to California and contracting the union busters, and they were preparing to bring them in anyway. So here we are. Thank you.
I want to just say one more thing. It's not just about wages. These are people who are raising their children in the middle of toxic fields.
That's right.
They're living in the middle of poison because of the housing that's provided very substandard.
It's surrounded by non-organic acres and acres. And the whole 4 weeks I was there, I was sick. My lungs were so bad by the end of last summer. So I know it's bad. Anything else?
Thank you, Rosalinda.
Thank you, Sandra.
We do have teachers $20
$100.